Hey guys, Pulse here, and welcome to another episode of Delving Deep ESO. Now this time through we're going to be doing something a little bit different than the usual because some new beta footage just came into the world yesterday and birthed onto the internet, and now we have something to talk about. Now I just want to take a look at the footage, kind of explain what I seen in the footage, give you guys some opinions on what I saw and that sort of thing. And then in addition to all of that, I want to ask you guys to send me some questions for an upcoming kind of episode I have in this idea for Delving Deep ESO, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now let's start off with the leaked footage. I can't post any links here. I can't really show any footage in the background either because that would be channel suicide at this point because of the stance Zenimax has on their leaks and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna have to leave the search to you all, but really a simple Google search or some Reddit reading really should yield some results without too much headache. But I do want to mention before I get into my discussion on the footage that if you're watching this a day or two late from when it was originally leaked, the quality is probably not going to be that good. So if you can find an okay quality video, I would suggest watching it before that gets taken down, because with each sort of subsequent mirror that they have to keep putting up to combat Zenimax removing them, the quality is getting lower and lower. So if you find one that's okay, I would suggest watching it instead of risking it to find a higher quality one, because odds are it doesn't exist. Now let's just get into the footage. Let me just start the discussion on this thing. Let's really just jump into the footage and what there is into it. Now there's not a lot of gameplay here, to be honest. There's really not a lot, but nonetheless it's gameplay. It's something that we can look at and we can see ESO in action, so that's pretty exciting, mainly because, like I said, Zenimax is really just tearing down anything we can see. Their NDA is ridiculous, so seeing this gameplay is pretty good, and the fact is it actually is pretty good gameplay. There's not a lot we can see in terms of details, but it actually looks pretty well done. Now, the video actually starts off with the player recording here, doing some character creation stuff, which he eventually ends up picking an Argonian. Now, I want to say first off that the Argonian looks amazing. It looks better than Skyrim in my opinion, and as far as I know, is the first time that we've seen an Argonian played in any footage, period. As far as I know, this is the first time we've seen the lizard guy on screen. Now, before I get into what he does after character creation, let me say, to people who intend to leak or do gameplay footage, unless for whatever reason your audience likes you sort of showing the character creation of something they cannot play, don't do it. It's wasting. He wastes like 2.5 minutes doing character creation here when all he had to do was show the post load screen and tack on 2 more minutes of gameplay. I mean, it would make things so much easier. But that's just me. I don't like character creation. Let me know if there are people out there that like seeing that character creation stuff, because really the only sort of justification for character creation in my mind when showing this kind of footage is if you have the ability to show multiple videos and you can take the time to do a video where you say you're going to do only character creation and give the player all the options. When you do stuff like this, which is you just mucking around in it and not giving any details, really showing any of the choice that's going into your character creation, it's pointless. So that's it for me on the character creation thing. I just wanted to let people know that don't waste our times with that stuff unless you're going to deliberately give us something worthwhile to watch when it comes to character creation. It's pointless footage. Now, the footage after the character creation starts off with the typical MMO stuff. The character, he hits his load screen, he comes into the world, and then he immediately starts running around, talking, picking up quests, and that sort of thing, which, like I said, is very typical of the first actions you take in an MMO, and for the most part is really the first kind of things you do in an Elder Scrolls game as well. The thing is here, this is very Elder Scrolls in style, with pretty good voice acting throughout as you run around the town and you go into the buildings, that sort of thing. And then in addition to that, the overall aesthetic choices they've made with this game is very Elder Scrolls also. Now, even though there's a kind of a balance between the two, it's definitely leaning more towards Elder Scrolls in my opinion. And between that and the voice acting, I'm now I say, because I haven't been pretty convinced that Elder Scrolls fans and MMO fans alike will be able to enjoy the sort of happy medium of the graphical style and the overall world and the immersiveness that they have going with Elder Scrolls Online. I feel like it's definitely damn near perfect, in my opinion, about as perfect as you're going to get in between the two sort of styles. Now, before moving on to the actual combat portion, which I know is what you guys actually want to hear about, I have to mention this weird bug, or maybe it's just a weird sort of overlook on their part, but essentially it's this weird opening and closing doors. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's a bug, where if you think past test games, you walk into a building, you hit the load screen, a very quick one, and it gives you that opening door or closing door sound effect, that sort of thing. And from what I can tell, it's usually if you go from the outside to the inside in this case. But Elder Scrolls Online has the sound effect as well, which is actually pretty cool when you think about it. It's cool, right? You've got this extra little detail. The devil's in the details. It's all about that little stuff. Well, the thing is, in this, especially, like I said, it's probably bug, but in this footage, every single time another player opens or closes that door that's near you, you hear that sound effect too, which from the viewer point of view of watching this footage is not that big of a deal. But if you're standing there, you put yourself in the place of the character playing, that would be incredibly frustrating. I mean, there was this part early on where the character went in and out of a building, and then he realized he missed something. He walked back in and he talked to this NPC that he had previously talking to. Now, when he's talking to her the second time, I noticed pretty quickly that you can hear her voice, but the next thing, definitely the highest sort of volume thing going on in the room besides the NPC talking to you, is this door closing and opening sort of sound effect going on and off. And all you can really hear is this very, very low underlying music that they have that's supposed to sort of set the tone of the Elder Scrolls and that sort of thing. And all you can hear is creaking, opening, and closing over and over. Spam, spam, spam. That's all you can hear. Now, like I said, it's probably an easy fix. Just a bug, probably. It's not a huge deal. And I just really had to point it out, because if it's not something Zenimax has caught on to as being really frustrating, please change your point of view. Just make it so that other people can't hear you when you open the door, so only one person can hear their own door opening, that sort of thing. For goodness sakes, that would annoy the hell out of me, so I had to point that out. Now really onto the combat. Like I said, I know that's what you really came here for, that's what you want to know about. I have to give props first off, not because he leaked it, but because the player that did the leak didn't, at least from what I can tell, it doesn't appear that he's going out of his way to ruin the sort of Elder Scrolls Online image. It's like some of the previous leakers have attempted to do, at least. And the combat looks pretty fluid. The overall motions look pretty fluid. And even though it's hard to tell without playing, it really does seem that Zenimax has done well to keep to their promises about tweaking the sort of weightiness of combat, because we've been hearing for a while now that people that have played it really don't feel the impact of their blows and that sort of thing. So I'm glad to see, from what I can tell, it actually looks like there's some oomph behind your blows, instead of just floating through and passing through enemies, as seen in previous footage and talked about by people that have played it. Now, it should also be said that there's pretty much no variety in terms of combat beyond the sort of what you see where he's attacking with his sword, from what I can tell. The problem is that because there's no obvious visual cues going on here, it's easy to miss this detail, which I actually picked up on probably my second or third watch, was that when he's fighting, you can clearly see his stamina bar going up and down, which to me indicates that he's actually utilizing his blocks and his charged up power attacks with the sword. So instead of what it looks to be is where he's just spamming the left mouse button over and over and over again, and that's the only bit of combat there is, which is the most repetitive thing in the world. In actuality, he's actually attacking with blocks and power attacks, and there's actually some choice going into it. He doesn't have skills yet because this is level 1 combat, that sort of thing, so it's not the most interesting thing in the world anyway, but the fact is that it's not as bland as it appears. I just want to keep that in mind. Now, this kind of leads me into one thing I do want to talk about. Kind of getting ranty here, to be honest. But like I said, this leads me into something I feel like it shouldn't be required of me saying, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm seeing this a lot. There's people apparently on the internet, and I realize it is the internet, so I'm gonna get this no matter where I look. But there's a lot of people that are apparently unable to use logic at all when dissecting this stuff. It's driving me crazy. I mean, I've seen a lot of people whining and bitching and moaning that this looks dull and unappealing, which I just explained to you. After I watched it 1 or 2 times, I realized it does look dull as hell. but there's more to it than that. It's in the details. You got to pick it apart. I mean, I'm pretty convinced at this point that the reason it's not so obvious is because power strikes and maybe even blocking for an Argonian model isn't quite finished yet in terms of animation, so that's why it's not so obvious. Now, I mean, it's crazy to me. I just took a couple seconds of time to look at the details there, and I was able to pick that out. It's amazing. It's like I was watching the video. And I mean, it also should be said, I'm seeing tons of people do this thing as well. They go on, they bitch about the sort of dull appearance of the combat, and then they go, ESO is a massive flop. It's the next Star Wars: The Old Republic. This footage is proof of the sort of mess up that Zenimax is giving us, that sort of thing. And to all of these people that either they start this, either because they're trolls and that sort of thing, or to the people that jump on the bandwagons, which actually, in my opinion, are worse because they don't use any logic to sort of make their own decision on what they see. Just use your damn brain. For goodness sake, use your brain. Think about this. In what MMO ever has there been level 1 combat that has been engaging in the slightest? Please tell me, because there's not one. You're making it up if there is. In addition to this, though, I have to ask people, why do you sort of automatically begin to judge a product so harshly without playing it yourself? Now, I understand the need for this sort of negative style constructive feedback, which I feel is actually good use of your commentary or whatever you're talking about if you're on the forums, to let the developers know that you don't feel so strongly about this sort of thing going well. So maybe they'll change it, that sort of thing. But the problem is that it's ridiculous thinking. I mean, even though I kind of agree that Zenimax isn't off the hook just because other companies and other products that came before have really not hit the nail on the head in terms of right out of the gate level 1, level 2, low level combat and content, that sort of thing. It doesn't really get them off the hook, like I said. But it's ridiculous that people just jump on the hate train. I hate the stance Zenimax has on the leaked footage and the NDA, and just how restrictive they are on really providing free sort of commercialization and advertising for their product. I hate what they're doing in terms of that, and probably more than a lot of people do. And it honestly leaves a foul taste in my mouth, just like it does with a lot of other people. The problem is, and I have to say this again, play it yourself before you judge, or at the very least, guys, have the patience to let the NDA sort of fall down a little bit. Wait until there's actual like an open beta, or there's an allowance of tons of footage, and sort of just allow so there's multiple sources of info, multiple sources of footage, that sort of thing, before you judge. And then don't take it to the forums and jump on these hate trains because you didn't take the time to look at the details of what you're getting, that sort of thing. Be rational before just jumping on the hate train. Now, that's it. I'm done with the ranting. I promise. Done with ranting for this episode. But I just had to get that off my chest. It's driving me nuts. Now, really back onto the topic here. The footage we see, it really plays out as we would expect, with a little bit of hack and slash, very Elder Scrolls in that regard, and there's some roll dodging, which is very Guild Wars 2. So, and from what I can tell, there's I couldn't hear it in the video myself, but I had read on a few forums that the guy in the video said something about the combat feels very Guild Wars 2. From what I can tell, it actually looks more like Elder Scrolls Online with the way that the stamina works. But I think that it's kind of garnered this thing with dodging, because that has obviously been kind of copy-pasted from Guild Wars 2. That's a mechanic that a lot of other games are picking up now because of that. It's gotten this sort of title as Guild Wars 2 Plus, which honestly is a fine title because Guild Wars 2 is freaking fantastic. So that's not a negative thing in any regard. But since I am kind of on this rolling dodging mechanic thing, I do want to mention one thing that I noticed in the video, which it might have been obvious to a lot of other people, but I haven't seen it used quite like this. Now, I've seen where they've had the roll dodging, and even when you jump and you land on the ground, you roll, that sort of thing, but it looks like there's no like fall damage when your character does this roll, at least not significant enough for me to notice on his health bar. What I mean by this is there's a part probably mid through the video where the character runs off a rather steep cliff, and he jumps to the ground, and when he gets there, his character does the roll, which we've seen before. The thing is, he doesn't have no damage, It's just this pretty cool little animation here. Now, I don't know if that means there's no fall damage at all in the game, but the thing is, at least if there isn't fall damage at all, there's this sort of roll which can at least kind of counteract this idea of losing the immersiveness because you just fell from really high up. I mean, a game that, for example, I'm trying to play now just to really break the boredom up between Guild Wars 2 and Elder Scrolls Online is Rift, because it went free to play. I said, what the hell, I'll jump in. There's no fall damage in that game. You jump off a huge tower, your character lands on the ground, boom. It's like he never felt anything. There's no shaking, there's no crunching, there's no death. There's no indication at all that you fell from 5 stories up. There's nothing. So I'm really glad to see that, even though this might not be the best way to deal with a no fall damage kind of mechanic, like I said with the door thing, it's in the details. It's pretty exciting to see that they're actually taking the details this far, because that's really what keeps you engaged. After the sort of first few minutes, after you get to know your playstyle, you get to know your character, you get to know the combat and the mechanics around that, it's the details that keep you engaged. So that's pretty damn cool. Now, since I am talking about the animations, let me just quickly point out that they're definitely taken sort of a little bit more polish to them, especially with this new footage. And it's not perfect in any sort of stretch of the imagination, but it's a definite step in the right direction. Pretty cool to see that they've definitely polished some things up that way. So I'm glad to see that the sort of beta has gotten to this point where they're beginning to polish these things, which have been concerns for a lot of other people. Now, finally, the video ends with 2 things that I feel are kind of important. First off, we see very, very quickly, just a super quick glimpse of first-person view, which I know that it's kind of been said before that this has been in the beta, that sort of thing. This is an actual 100% confirmation that it's being tested in a recent beta setting, which is really cool to me, because it's something which they really fought the community on implementing and that sort of thing. The fact that it's in the game right now is really cool. I'm glad to see that it's shaping up well. That's really important in my eyes anyway. I feel like that was a good choice for them to put it in the game, and the fact that it's in a more recent beta build is really, really cool. Now, let me see. Next up, just before logging off and ending the video here, we see the UI for what would be essentially an escape button menu, or in a start menu, perhaps in a sort of console environment, that kind of thing. Now, the UI panes look much better than in previous videos, first off, and I've seen really a lot of these little leaked videos, and pretty much all of them have just been black boxes, that sort of thing. But this really has some detail ingrained in it, and it's very Elder Scrolls kind of art and that thing attached to it, which is pretty cool. But more importantly than that is what I noticed at the very end, and I had to pause it just to make sure I seen it correctly, is that there's a button for add-ons specifically placed right in the bunch of what the typical start menu stuff is, like the options menu, that sort of thing. There's a whole slew of them, and then add-ons is right there on that screen, which is it's pretty cool, because we've known add-ons are going to be in the game for a while now, and the fact that add-ons are really added with this sort of integrated menu, they're actually integrated into it so nicely. It just means that we can do things with add-ons that aren't so frustrating. So I'll just explain through an example here. Anyone that's used add-ons and say wow, because that game has a huge sort of audience, so there's a lot of people that can really understand this example. You probably know how annoying it can be if you log in and you don't have the add-ons properly there, and you have to log in and out. You have to go out of your game and back into your game to get the add-ons to work properly, and then oh no, I didn't realize that this add-on wasn't character specific, and now your UI is all messed up and you have to go out and go back in and fix it again, that sort of thing. And it's just really frustrating. And I mean, if you can change add-ons within the sort of Elder Scrolls Online menu system that they have here, instead of being forced to jump out of the game, it's really a simple change, a simple choice, really a simple design choice on Zenimax's part. But it's one that really myself and many others that play MMOs will thoroughly appreciate, because it's really frustrating, as I said. Now, hopefully you guys, I want to say that you can hopefully find a quality footage sort of out there, a mirror maybe that's good and able to be viewable without just tons of blockiness and terrible sort of quality there, because I feel like if you watch it, you'll get your own opinion and really see what I'm talking about here. It's better to sort of see it than even talk about it. But hopefully you guys can find that. I just want to say hopefully you guys can get some footage and get your own opinions on it. Now finally guys, I want to wrap up with one thing here is I want to ask you guys to do something here. I have this idea for an Elder Scrolls Online sort of questions and answers basket thing where you the viewers ask me anything about Elder Scrolls, be it questions about ESO and its development and that sort of thing, or maybe some of the mechanics and details that I've even gone over in previous videos. If there's maybe something that you have a weird question or a weird spin on some of the things you've heard, I definitely would comment on that. Now it's really just a pretty cool idea here where I can just take sort of my own speculative ideas and preferences with MMOs and Elder Scrolls Online, and then maybe some of the facts that have come out, and really just give you guys some discussion. I mean, the real reason for this idea really coming into play at all is because on some of the other videos I've had sort of either comments left below or even some frequently that come into my inbox at YouTube. They're just asking me some pretty good questions that I feel like if there's more of these kinds of either, like I said, kind of weird spin-offs of questions or things that aren't quite answered yet, I could really get into some pretty cool discussion about them. I mean, plus I'm really all about the community interaction here, so the fact is that if I can get some pretty cool questions, maybe some things that aren't answered in the previous videos, or maybe even some things that not a lot of other people talk about, I am really down for answering that, interacting with you guys, that sort of thing. So guys, really think up some good questions about Elder Scrolls Online that I can really rip apart and give my own answers and opinions to. I'm really excited to see what kind of discussion can come out of questions from you guys, because like I said, I've already gotten quite a few from others in the comments and in my inbox and that sort of thing. So guys, that will do it for me today. I urge you to really like and subscribe and comment down below, not just for the questions that I've really requested from you guys, but for feedback of all kinds. I mean, I also want to say make sure to check out the full Delving Deep playlist for ESO, and really that's all the coverage there, all in one tight spot so you can find it. And then stick to the Nova Pulse Gaming channel for everything Elder Scrolls Online, gaming industry, all of that as a whole. It's all on, I'm covering it, don't worry. This has been Pulse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.